If you're stuck in that mid-handicap zone anywhere from 10 to 24, chances are you're making some really simple mistakes that are costing you shots every round. In this video, we're breaking down the 7 most common errors mid-handicappers make, from strategy slip-ups to basic technique fundamentals that are stopping you from going low. The great thing about these tips is they don't require masses of time practicing or drilling. They're really easy fixes to make once you know what to look out for. Fix even one of these things and you'll see an immediate difference on your scorecard. Right, let's get into it. So a simple thing that a lot of mid-handicap golfers get wrong, and is definitely limiting their game, is their grip, and more specifically a palmy grip. So a palmy grip is when you hold the club and it sort of runs up the palm of either the top hand or the bottom hand, and what that causes is an inability to use our wrist properly and also shut the face. So generally a palmy grip player is going to lose the ball out to the right for a right-handed golfer or to the left for a left-handed player. You're also going to suffer a bit with not being able to create enough speed, so you're just going to hit the ball a bit shorter. Easy fix. This is a huge easy thing to do because we haven't even started swinging yet. It all happens in the preparation. Is you want to lay the club down pretty much almost in your fingertips of your top hand, and then wrap your fingers around the club and then roll your hand over the top of it. Whether you decide to overlap, interlock or baseball, I don't really care, but it's really important we have the grip in the fingers. So now all of a sudden I have just a better hold on the club, but also a lot more control of my wrists, sort of up and down, backwards and forwards, and also rotation. So not only am I going to be able to release the club a bit faster, I'm also going to be able to square the face up and stop the ball curving offline. All too often I see people with really palmy grips and then really open faces, which just means they're going to lose so many shots weak and short of the flag. Oh no, I'm going to lose that ball. Why have I done that? Sound. Now I know what it's like to be a mid-handicapper. A weak short right into the trees and I'll never see that ball again. Where instead, if we get our hands on the club properly, we're sort of 90% there in terms of getting the club face back squared up, and it's much easier to hit a more powerful draw shot. Another mistake I see mid-handicap golfers make all the time is sticking with golf cliches and coming to lessons or going to the driving range with just some generic advice that their playing partners have told them. So stuff like, I need to keep my left arm straight, I need to turn against a firm back leg, or I need to keep my head still, I need to keep my head down. All these things can potentially be harmful to your swings. All of those things sort of restrict movement, and generally most mid-handicappers that I see, they need more turn, they need freer swings, they need more speed, and every single one of those 4 things I said are going to limit you in some way or another. If in order for you to deliver the club from the inside with speed to hit a powerful draw shot, you have to let your arm bend at the top a little bit just for that extra range, then that's great. If you need to turn your hips more to get the right amount of shoulder turn, which then allows you to hit it from the inside, then that's perfect too. There's certainly no rule book here in how you should swing. Yes, we've got guidelines, and yes, we can look at old swings to see what has worked historically, but what you're not going to see are loads of tour players trying to keep the heads down, trying to keep the left arm straight, or trying to restrict their turn in any way. You're going to see lots of movement which is free flowing and always powerful. The club's always traveling from behind them. So don't be scared of sort of throwing those golf ideas in the bin, even if old Dave on a Saturday morning tells you every week that's what you should be doing. It's really important in the golf swing to try and get that club behind you at the top, because the further behind you it is, the more time it has to generate speed, the more chance it's going to travel down from the inside. And if you have to move your head, bend your left arm, straighten the right leg to do that, then that's exactly what you should be doing. So this is a big one for mid-handicappers and just generally people who are trying to lower their scores. So we've in a situation here where we've hit a tee shot and we've missed the fairway, and now I'm stood here and I actually have a direct line between my ball and the flag, and as tempting as it may be to try and punch through that narrow gap and get on the green and still make a par, You have just missed a 50 to 60 yard wide fairway, and now I'm not sure who you think you are, thinking that you can now hit it on a knife's edge through that gap onto the green. The most sensible thing here, and what will help you keep your scores down across the whole season, is just to take your medicine, punch back out into the fairway, and then take your chances on an up and down. You're much more likely to make a double by playing up to the flag, bouncing off a tree and getting it wrong, than you are if you chip out. The worst score you're ever going to make is a bogey, and you might actually save some pars. So a punch out's a really easy shot to get right. You generally want to take more loft than you think. So I've got an 8-iron here, and I'm just going to punch out across that way. A lot of people I see will take a 5-iron or a 4-iron because the idea is to try and keep it low, but that club will never get the ball out of the grass. So we need something with a little bit of loft just to get the ball moving, but then we're going to have the ball back in our stance, our hands forward. Then all we're going to do is make a short, sharp swing where we keep the follow through short, and then that just sends the ball low and back out across the fairway. Doing this across a season is going to help save you loads and loads and loads of shots. Never in a million years would I dream of taking that shot on, even if I was in the final of a match play tournament, just because I know 9 times out of 10 it's not going to work out. Whereas if I pitch it out and leave myself a straightforward pitch onto the green from the fairway, I back myself with my wedges, and I feel like I might make some of those. So when you hit it offline, let's just be sensible, take our medicine, get it back in play, and not cause ourselves any more damage. So sometimes we're in situations where we've hit a perfect drive, we're in the middle of the fairway, and we've got a relatively straightforward shot to the green, or certainly what seems like a straightforward shot. Something I see mid-handicappers do that costs them at least 2 to 3 shots around is aiming at flags that they shouldn't be aiming at. The perfect example is golfers either just aim at the flag because that's all they think to aim at, or they're aiming at a flag assuming that they might hit it straight and then hit it close and a good chance at a birdie, where good players recognise that they don't have complete control over their ball. So what they do is they generally play to areas that are safer than maybe where the flag is, knowing that getting on the green and 2-putting is a great strategy to lower your handicap. So what we've got here is a flag which is right at the front of the green, with a bunker which is also right at the front of the green. So although I'm stood here with a wedge in my hand thinking, okay, I can attack this pin and maybe make a birdie, I know that the front of the green is the most narrow part of this green. A shot left is going to go in the bunker, which is basically at least one shot, or a shot to the right leaves me a fairly tricky up and down. So what I would do in this situation is actually use my shot scope, find out how far it is to the flag, then probably add 5 on and think, right, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play beyond the flag to a wider portion of the green and just take my chances on either coming back at the flag and making a 2-putt, or if I even don't get my shot right and don't strike it properly, that 5 yards is going to give me a bit of a buffer, which means I might hit it pin high. So it's a bit complicated thought process there, but as a guy off scratch, all I'm trying to do is make as few mistakes as possible. So that means sometimes actively playing away from the flags to leave me straightforward 2-putts and really stress-free pars. So all I'm going to do is just try and hit this 5 yards past, play past all the trouble, which will leave me no chance of making bogey. Could go in, could go in. So that's sort of worked about right. It's gone very straight, which was great. Now that doesn't always happen, but that one did, and it's gone past the flag to a wider part of the green. That was like perfectly executed. Something I see a lot of mid-handicappers get stuck in, certainly in lessons and in their golf swings, is worrying too much about the takeaway. The takeaway is a position that the club just passes through on the way to the top, and what happens a lot of time is the golfer gets so focused on where the club is in relation to their hands at this part of the swing that they then don't make a complete backswing, and then despite having a perfect takeaway still hit rubbish shots. Now what you have to understand is the takeaway, A, you don't hit the ball with your takeaway, so it doesn't really matter, but B, your takeaway should just allow you to move into a really good top of the backswing position. So if you're someone who's stiff and inflexible, then having an inside takeaway is okay, because it's going to allow you to turn a bit further and swing a bit flatter, which is what's going to help you hit the ball further and hit it with a draw. I see a lot of people that are generally frightened of taking the club low and inside because on Instagram it's not very cool. And generally what that results in is people lifting too much in the early part of the swing, not creating enough depth with the hands, and then inevitably hitting pulls and slices. So my advice would be is don't get too wrapped up in exactly where the club passes through, because the club is literally just passing through that position, but instead think about what do you need to do to get the club in the right place at the top. And if that means lift the club out steep because you're a late turner, then do that. Or if you just need more turn, just think about going low and inside. And those two things are fine as long as you get into the right place at the top, because what really matters is the place in which you hit from. So if you take it low and flat, but that gets you in a nice position, then that's great. But just don't worry yourself too much about this position, when actually the moment of truth is down here, and that's an awful long way away from your takeaway. So just don't worry about it. Do your best to get into a good hitting position so that you can then hit powerful draws. So when playing with mid-handicappers, what I see an awful lot is wrong club selection around the greens. So what this generally means is a player uses way too much loft and then inevitably has to make a longer swing, which invites more trouble. So this is a perfect example of a shot where most people are going to pull out a lob wedge because they're thinking, right, I need to pop this ball up, land it just on the green for it to finish somewhere close. And whilst that might be the right shot for someone who's extremely high skilled and has a great touch and a great feeling and awareness for landing the ball at exactly the right place, I know that myself and most other golfers don't possess that sort of touch and skill. So actually we should be putting the sand wedges away and then using like an 8-iron. So these shots are so much simpler, so much lower risk, because all we're really doing is making a putting stroke with our 8-iron. So I've got a narrow stance, I've got the ball sort of middle to back of my stance, I've got my hands down the grip, I'm stood nice and close, and all I'm going to do is basically stiff arm chip this, run it up that slope, and maybe it'll finish close. No. Oh! So by doing that, we're not always going to hit the ball super close, but you are always going to get the ball on the green. And when the ball's on the green, you've got a chance of putting it in. What you've got to try and imagine here is, I've made a mistake and missed the green, but there's nothing that I have to necessarily go over. So when it's firm and dry, what we can do is run it through this grass, take your 8-iron or even a hybrid or a 5-wood, make a short putting stroke, get it on the green, and let's make a 5 at worst. There's nothing worse than hitting 2 good shots somewhere near the flag, but then taking 4 to get down because you've tried to be too good with the club that we probably shouldn't be using. Get your 8-iron out, bump and run it on the green, and just let's play sensible golf. Something I see all too often when playing with mid-handicappers is them not taking their time over these short putts. Now I understand that according to strokes gained that these putts just aren't as valuable as long irons and long drives, but unfortunately a 3-foot putt counts as 1 stroke on the scorecard just as much as a long drive does. So it's really important to be meticulous about this length of putt. So I would actually prefer to see golfers line their ball up when they're about 3 to 5 feet away, because the line is really, really important here. And just don't rush your process. Take your time, mark your ball, make sure that you're reading the putt properly so you're not just using the line you were using from 25 feet. Start again. So mark your ball, step back, read the putt, line your ball up, because this just gives you the best chance on short putts of A, aiming in the right direction, and therefore B, hitting it on line. And from there, go through your full routine, a couple of practice strokes, maybe looking at the hole, get yourself lined up, and just make sure that these go in. As I said, there's nothing worse than missing these short ones, because it's a waste of a shot, it's a waste of your effort up the hole. To hit 2 good shots to 3 feet and then miss is an absolute killer. Or having an accidental 3-putt when you've hit the green in 2 is also a complete disaster. So if you can tidy up these 3 to 5 foot putts on the course, I've no doubt you're going to score lower. So hopefully those 7 things make sense. They all seem pretty obvious, but sometimes you need someone to tell you the obvious thing in order for it to sink in. Now, have a think about your last few rounds just to see how many times you've made any of those mistakes and how many shots that could have saved you. And if any of those things work for you in the future, please give us a like, drop us a comment, and make sure you subscribe if you don't already, because that really helps us grow the channel and do more interesting content like this. This is all stuff that I think about in bed. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, why are people chipping with sand wedges?